Have you ever noticed that after a deep personal awakening, whether it came through a spiritual practice, a life crisis, or just years of inner searching, you suddenly feel tired of being around people? Conversations that once felt normal now seem shallow. Crowds leave you drained. Even friends or family you love can start to feel distant, like you're speaking a different language. You might even ask yourself, what's wrong with me? Am I becoming antisocial? This experience is far more common than most people admit. In fact, Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who laid the foundation for analytical psychology, not only predicted this sense of fatigue but explained why it happens and how to handle it. Awakening, in Jung's terms, is not some blissful escape from life, it's the start of a confrontation with the deepest layers of the psyche. And when you undergo that transformation, your relationship with others, and with society as a whole, changes forever. This video explores why awakening often makes us feel tired of people, how Jung's theories help explain that fatigue, and, most importantly, what to do about it. We'll cover his ideas on individuation, the shadow, the persona, solitude, and authentic connection. By the end, you'll see that this weariness isn't a sign of failure, it's a sign you're on the right path. 1. Carl Jung and the concept of awakening. When people talk about awakening, they often mean a moment of clarity, seeing through illusions, realizing life is more than routine, and touching something transcendent. Jung would describe this differently. For him, awakening is tied to individuation, the lifelong process of becoming who you truly are. It's not about escaping reality but integrating the unconscious into consciousness. It's messy, challenging, and deeply transformative. In Jung psychology, the unconscious isn't just a dumping ground for forgotten memories. It contains archetypes, ancestral patterns, and aspects of ourselves we've never acknowledged. Awakening, then, is not just about light and insight, it's also about facing shadows. This is why it doesn't make you happier overnight. Instead, it rearranges how you see yourself and the world. That shift is why people begin to feel different in social spaces. Once you've touched the deeper layers of reality, everyday small talk feels artificial. Once you've seen your own masks and defenses, it becomes hard to ignore the masks others wear. Awakening isn't a finish line, it's the beginning of a much harder, but more authentic, journey. 2. Why people feel tired of others after awakening. So why does awakening make us feel drained around people? Jung would argue it's because your perception has sharpened. Where you once accepted surface-level conversations, you now notice the unconscious motives, projections, and defenses operating beneath them. It's like hearing background noise you can't hear anymore. This sensitivity makes ordinary socializing exhausting. For example, small talk about weather or gossip may feel unbearable because you crave depth and truth. Being in a group can feel overwhelming because you pick up on subtle tensions or unspoken fears. What others experience as just hanging out feels, to you, like swimming through a sea of hidden emotions. On top of that, awakening creates distance. Jung believed that most people live in the collective unconscious, following cultural scripts without realizing it. Once you've stepped outside of that, you no longer fit in as smoothly. You see through the script, and that makes the performance of social life harder to participate in. It's not that you dislike people, it's that you can't go back to unconsciousness. 3. The burden of awareness. Awareness is liberating, but it also comes with weight. Jung often described the process of individuation as lonely because the more conscious you become, the fewer people you can truly relate to. This isn't arrogance, it's simply that your priorities change. What once bonded you to others may no longer hold meaning. Think of it this way: before awakening, you could sit comfortably in the crowd. After awakening, you realize the crowd is following a script you can't play along with anymore. This creates what Jung called the loneliness of consciousness. You may long for connection, but you also can't ignore what you've seen. This burden also explains why you feel tired. Awareness demands energy. It forces you to constantly process layers of meaning others might never notice. That sensitivity is a gift, but it also drains you faster. It's like carrying a heavier backpack than everyone else while walking the same trail. 4. Jung on the persona and the masks of society. One of Jung's most relevant concepts here is the persona, the social mask we all wear to function in society. Before awakening, the persona feels natural. You play your role at work, at home, in friendships, and you don't question it too much. But after awakening, the persona feels like a costume. You see how much of your life has been scripted to fit expectations. This recognition creates tension. On one hand, we need the persona to survive in society. You can't show your raw, unfiltered self at all times. On the other hand, too much persona feels fake. After awakening, many people feel stuck between these poles, exhausted by the mask, but not sure how to live without it. Jung's insight was that the persona is not bad, it just shouldn't dominate the self. When you realize that, you start to interact differently. You may pull away from environments that demand too much masking, which looks like fatigue with people. But really, it's fatigue with inauthenticity. 5. Shadow dynamics in relationships. Another reason you feel tired of people after awakening is shadow work. Jung defined the shadow as the parts of ourselves we repress or deny. Awakening brings shadows to light, not just your own, but other people's as well. You start noticing how often people project their insecurities, fears, and unacknowledged desires onto others. This heightened perception makes relationships complicated. You may see through someone's defensiveness, manipulation, or self-deception. Where before you could ignore it, now it's glaringly obvious. This creates emotional fatigue, because every interaction feels layered with hidden battles. At the same time, your own shadow surfaces. Awakening isn't about transcending humanity, it's about integrating what you've hidden from yourself. That inner work takes energy. Add that to the outer work of navigating others' shadows, and it's no wonder you feel drained. Jung would say this is not a mistake but part of individuation. You're learning to hold the tension between light and dark, self and other. 6. What to do with this fatigue. So what can you actually do when you feel tired of people? Jung's answer was never to escape society completely but to integrate. Avoidance can lead to isolation or superiority complexes. Integration means learning how to live authentically while still engaging with the world. One practical step is to choose depth over breadth in relationships. Instead of trying to maintain every old connection, focus on the ones that resonate with your new awareness. Seek out people who value honesty, depth, and growth. This doesn't mean cutting everyone off, it means conserving energy for the relationships that matter. Another step is to balance solitude with social life. Jung emphasized the importance of solitude for individuation. It's not weakness to step back and recharge, it's necessary. But he also warned against hiding in solitude forever. The goal is to bring what you've learned back into connection, even if only with a few kindred spirits. 7. The role of solitude in individuation. For Jung, solitude is not just a preference, it's a stage of growth. After awakening, solitude becomes a container where you can process insights, integrate shadow material, and hear your inner voice without the noise of society. It's the fertile ground where individuation takes root. But solitude has to be distinguished from isolation. Healthy solitude recharges you, unhealthy isolation cuts you off from life. Jung warned that the psyche can become distorted if you withdraw too much. The key is rhythm, periods of solitude followed by conscious return to human connection. This is why your fatigue isn't purely negative. It's your psyche telling you that you need space to digest what awakening has stirred up. If you honor that need, solitude becomes medicine, not a prison. 8. Reframing being tired of people. It's important to reframe this whole experience. Feeling tired of people doesn't mean you hate humanity or that you've failed at awakening. It means your inner compass is shifting. You're no longer satisfied with shallow, unconscious interactions. You crave authenticity, and until you find it, everything else feels exhausting. Think of this phase as psychological adjustment. Like when your eyes adapt to brighter light, your psyche is adapting to a wider field of awareness. The fatigue is temporary. Over time, you'll build the resilience to interact without losing yourself. This reframe also helps you see your fatigue as discernment. It's not rejection, it's selection. You're learning to choose environments and relationships that match your growth. Jung would say this is individuation in action, becoming yourself by aligning with what nourishes your soul. 9. Practical steps Jung would suggest. So what would Jung practically advise? First, he'd recommend active imagination, a method of dialoguing with your unconscious through images, writing, or art. This helps process the flood of inner material that awakening unleashes. Second, he'd point to dream journaling. Dreams, Jung believed, are messages from the unconscious. They guide you through the individuation process and help you understand the dynamics behind your fatigue. Third, he'd emphasize shadow integration. When you notice others' shadows, ask what they reflect about your own. This keeps you from falling into judgment and makes social fatigue less about them and more about mutual growth. Finally, he'd encourage building genuine community. That might mean fewer friends but deeper ones. It might mean finding people on a similar path. Authentic connection reduces fatigue because you don't have to wear the persona so heavily. Conclusion. Awakening is not a blissful escape, it's a confrontation with truth. And truth, as Jung knew, is heavy. That's why you feel tired of people after awakening. You're no longer content to live in masks and shadows. You crave something real. Carl Jung's psychology shows that this fatigue is not a problem to fix but a sign of growth. It means your psyche is reorganizing itself. The path forward is not to retreat forever, but to integrate, to balance solitude and connection, to seek depth over breadth, and to continue the lifelong process of individuation. So if you feel weary of people right now, take heart. It doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're becoming. And as Jung would remind us, the goal is not to escape humanity, it's to become fully human, with all the light and shadow that entails.